coming online. Just setting some stuff up. Be right with you. Oh yeah, it's gonna work. Hi. You're out of Facebook jail for using the word troll 1 month? Really? You can get busted for that? Good Lord. Yeah, it's a crazy day. Hi, chat room. Look at this big, beautiful chat room. Just gathering, hanging out. Look at you. Look at you. It's gonna make you all big like that. Just make you feel important. Be nice. This way we get to call out the trolls and how ridiculous they are. Live on the air. Of course, this also puts me up for something. By the way, I got a Founding Fathers ponytail happening right here. Look at that little guy. Look at that little thing happening. It's good times. I feel like this is the result of shooting a bunch of stuff for Sexy Liberal and having my head in wig after wig after wig after wig, and just I haven't had a chance to like shower, wash my hair in the last day, so I can't man bun it. It's not long enough on the bottom. The bottom has to come out like that. So yeah, they're just straight up like I got a little bit of like Steven Seagal circa 1988, something like that going on. How do you do a half man bun? All or nothing, people. What's wrong with you? Yes, I definitely have wig hair today. The amount of wigs that I've been wearing in the last 3 days. Yes, this is my version of Hamilton hair. Right. A hair scone. Yeah, it's not quite a hair. It's more like a hair. It's a hair claire. And a hair. My hair is not short. It is simply tied back. It's actually getting long enough where it can finally actually be in a ponytail, which is kind of the extraordinary part. So hold on. Let me, in true form, let me shut the door. I'll be right back. This is, you know, they don't make my job any easier. You know, I gotta say. They don't. You know, they could have held off this BS until Saturday afternoon, and then in my preparations for Sexy Liberal, I would have felt better about the pieces I was doing, that they were all caught up, and, you know, I was on top of the news, and yet, for God's sake, these... It is like drinking from a fire hose, making comedy from these fools. It's just, it is never ending. We could have done an entire Sexy Liberal show just about dripping hair grease. I have not watched this whole thing. I don't think anybody has, really, except the people who, you know, put themselves through it to put out clips. But, Christ. Rudy Giuliani's leaky head, which we will see plenty of today, I have no doubt, I think did more damage to the national image of Italian Americans than I'm going to have to go with any musical written in the 60s about a crime that happened in the 30s. You get me? See where I'm heading with this? All right. So, Christ almighty. Motang gang, how you guys doing? So, a couple of things before we start. So we're all on the same page, shall we? Shall we just kind of, can we group? Can we do that? So, 45 talked today. He did it just now. Because he's been tweeting like mad. Nicole Wallace called him Eddie Munster. That's sad. So, is there... Okay, so the premise is that everybody around Trump is telling him to fight on, or is telling him to knock it off, but Trump is insisting on fighting on. As with anything coming out of this White House, I would say just assume the exact opposite is true most of the time. And so that means that Trump is ready to give up, and his own people who live, the barnacles don't want the whale to die, if you get me. So they're trying to talk him into fighting to the very last, and then, running a sour grapes network that they can all live off of. My hair's still there, it's just tied back. Nottingham, England. Wow. It is fantastic when folks all over the world join us and at least get a semblance of an idea that we're having our experience with our mad leaders. You guys have already had yours multiple times. As crazy as ours is, he's not, lopping off a wife's head because she couldn't produce a male child. But the weekend is coming, so we don't. It may take a turn. But I would rather not be lectured by Italians and Germans, especially on how crazy our leaders are and how crazy our people are for putting a crazy leader in place. So let's just cease fire, okay? No, my hair's not gone. It's tied back. But yeah, it's a ponytail. I'm going to have to tell everybody who's joining late. If you're joining late, everybody's on ponytail watch. If I don't mention it, people are going to freak out. We will have, at some point, I hope, how crazy are us jocks? We won the Crazy Leader Oscars? Yeah, but that's only because the Oscars didn't exist until after your crazy leaders had died. So there. And Sasha from Australia, it gets a complete pass because to avoid even having a bigger issue with crazies, England dropped all theirs off in Australia. No, not a haircut. Just a ponytail. This is going to be the whole show today, is it? Boink. Boink, boink, boink. It's just pulled back. I'm wigging it for all these comedy shows. Relax. Hold on. Will it show it? I don't know. Let me see. I'm going to give you this will just give you some idea of, before we get started, of the madness that has been my last couple of days. Will it work, though? I'm not going to show you the bit because these are just for Sexy Liberal, which is this Saturday, everybody. Very exciting. Very exciting. Where do I have a... This is so wrong. Open this guy up. Will this show up on here? Maybe. Here we go. Show. There we go. Give you some indication of what's in store. That's all I'm doing, though. That was just earlier today. So, for the record, just the madness. I've been waiting to do my Mark Levin for so long. And we finally, it's boiled down to he is the last, there are basically only two dead enders in the whole mix, Rudy Giuliani and Mark Levin. Oh, I have a very squeaky voice. Don't worry. I'm not doing the, like I said, the grape one, right? It should do him, make him purple. Oh, we all saw the leaky pictures. We're going to see it live as you do. This is them coming in, by the way. There you go. Let me close out the chat. What more could you ask for, honestly?
Good afternoon.
Okay, I don't want to jump right in because this is long, but he looks at his watch and says, "Good afternoon," like the press was late. You know what I mean? It's like, "Good morning, McFly. Glad you could join us for class today," you know.
And thank you very much for coming.
By the way, God damn it, I did an outfit for Sexy Liberal, and I shot this sketch 2 days ago. 2 days ago, and created a character for the Sexy Liberal show this weekend. And for God's sake, this woman comes out in the goddamn outfit. Ladies and gentlemen, I swear, if you watch it this weekend, it's so, you know that story about how hard it was for them to find Kamala Harris's outfit on Saturday Night Live and how they were running around and they managed to do it the day of because the announcement was that afternoon and all that shit. It was great. I had an outfit that was originally going to be Karen LaKaren's outfit, and I used it for another character, and this woman comes out in basically the outfit. I was falling apart. No masks in this room. Yeah.
Coming. This is
Ridiculous.
Representative of our legal team.
Oh, I don't know if that's, you want to say that right away. Doesn't inspire courage.
Representing President Trump, and we're representing the Trump campaign.
And so the American flags are just props.
When I finish, Sidney Powell and then Jenna Ellis will follow me, and we will present in brief the evidence that we've collected over the last.
Okay, by the way, this is probably the only show, and I say this with some trepidation and sorrow, that has gone through Rudy Giuliani's stupid frigging vlog show where he's been pitching this shit, right? Where else have you seen somebody do a takedown of Rudy Giuliani's common sense about this nonsense and take it head on? Where? No one. No, I mean, yes, they're ignoring. No, it's a ponytail. Seriously. I'm the only person who's even bothered to look into this horse shit. And we're probably, more than likely, going to hear the exact same bullshit.
It is 2 weeks. Also,
2 weeks bullshit. He's been leading up this whole story about it's going to be stolen and there's going to be all kinds of shenanigans with mail-in voting for 3 friggin' months.
Joseph Genever, Victoria Tenzing are here with me. There are a lot more lawyers working on this, but we're the senior lawyers.
You're the senior moment.
And Boris Epstein. So.
No relation to Jeffrey, who didn't kill himself.
I guess the best way to describe this is when we began our representation of the president.
In a parking lot between a porn shop and a crematorium.
We certainly were confronted with a very anomalous set of results.
Oh, yeah.
The president way ahead on election night.
No, he wasn't.
700,000 or 800,000 in Pennsylvania.
Wasn't ahead. Votes hadn't been counted. You're not ahead until the votes are all counted. If you don't, it's not a sporting event.
Somehow he lost Pennsylvania.
He lost because more people in Pennsylvania voted for Joe Biden.
We have statisticians willing to testify.
I have no doubt.
But that's almost statistically impossible to have happened.
So it's possible? Your witness.
Happened in the period of time that it happened. But of course, that's just speculation.
You mean in 2020?
As we started investigating, both our investigations and the very patriotic and brave American citizens that have come forward are extraordinary.
Yes, I know a lot of people called the election fraud hotline and provided very important details. Richard, thank you so much. Big hug, Richard. I believe that everyone who called the fraud hotline before it would shut down was simply trying to do their duty as an American. Do your duty on Rudy.
Extraordinary number of people, extraordinary number of witnesses.
Thank you very much. I thought my Bobcat was pretty solid.
And what emerged very quickly is
a turd.
There's not a singular voter fraud in one state. This pattern repeats itself in a number of states.
Rico Suave.
Almost exactly the same pattern.
Okay, before we jump into this, the pattern that someone sees can be the result of a pattern existing, or for their inability to see anything that contradicts their insistence that a pattern exists. You exclude anything that breaks the pattern, and you only include things that hyper-confirm the pattern. And anything in between is incidental background noise.
Which, to any experienced investigator, prosecutor, would suggest that there was a plan from a centralized place to execute these various acts of voter fraud,
specifically George Soros's outhouse.
Focused on big cities.
You know, where the black people are.
And specifically focused on, as you would imagine, big cities controlled by Democrats.
You know, the kind of cities where the vast majority of the people in those cities vote for Democrats, which would point to the fact that since there were big cities with lots of people in them compared to small counties with very few people, that the vast majority of the votes leaning towards Democratic because that's who they elect, ultimately, no.
And particularly focused on big cities that have a long history of corruption.
Black cities. Thank you, Rebecca.
The number of voter fraud cases in Philadelphia could fill a library.
Are we talking about like the Library of Congress, or are we talking about like the Trump Library, which I believe is 2 business cards stapled together?
Just a few weeks ago, there was a conviction for voter fraud, and 1 2 weeks before that. And
so the system is working, and people who commit voter fraud are being convicted, and there's been 3.
I've often said, I guess sarcastically, but it's true.
Yeah, I was talking about that earlier. We don't know where Gonzo is. We hope he's okay. We wish you well, Gonzo. Hello, if you're watching and you're just hanging back. Love you.
The only surprise I would have found in this is if Philadelphia hadn't cheated in this election.
Oh, okay. So you just write that into your election plans?
Because for the last 60 years, they've cheated in just about every single election.
Oh. Every single election. So, Philadelphia, every person in your government has been, thanks, Richard, thank you, Brian, is not a duly elected representative of the people, and this is all criminality. Philadelphia is just, I didn't realize, Philadelphia is the new 1930s Chicago?
You could say the same thing about Detroit.
What do they have in common? It's something they share with Atlanta, but I can't put my finger on it.
Each one of these cities are cities that are controlled by Democrats, which
you mean people vote for Democrats in them?
means they can get away with anything they want to do. It means they have a certain degree.
You mean they could like shoot somebody in the middle of Fifth Avenue and not lose any support?
Control over, certainly control the election board completely, and they control law enforcement. And unfortunately, they have some friendly judges that will issue ridiculously irrational opinions just to come out in their favor.
And the sweat has already started. We are a minute into this shit, and she's like, I don't know what this face is. I don't know if this is, you're the old man and I'm the rising star, or I have never been so proud to sleep with a man in my whole life. I can't tell. Thank you, Templeton. I don't know. I don't know what this is. What's this relationship here? This is like a Borat scene waiting to happen.
So let's start with the specifics.
Please. Okay. This is a good word. Specifics. Hey, let's hear some specifics.
Pennsylvania.
Okay, that's it. Pennsylvania, where Philadelphia is.
Pennsylvania, the margin of victory now for Biden, which is not a victory, it's a fraud, is 69,140 votes.
Okay, the only specific I heard was Biden's lead. But this is the first of many times this asshole will touch his mouth and nose and then the podium, microphone, and paper.
The reality is that we are now at a count of 682,770 ballots, for which we have affidavits that there was no inspection of that ballot at the time that it was entered in the vote. It was a
By the way, if you actually are finding yourself believing any of this bullshit right now, just for the record, go watch the stream from yesterday where we looked at Rudy's common sense about the affidavits that he has, which includes the guy. Whoops. Do we lose it? All right. Visually okay? Yeah. Which includes the I guess the guy from Philadelphia he's talking about specifically, who said he wasn't close enough to see any ballots, but he was close enough to see that the ballots that came in had Biden's name on them. That whole bullshit. The guy who came an hour late to be a poll watcher and was kept in another room as an auxiliary and never got to actually be a poll watcher because they already had a full dance card. But that guy, because he was put in a room and because he was starting to photograph people's written information on their envelopes, was told to go pound sand.
It's a mail ballot. Mail ballots are particularly prone to fraud.
No, they're not. No, they aren't. They have more potential for fraud than something that happens in person. But that doesn't mean you tear up every check you get in the mail because you didn't see the person write it. There are systems in place to verify such things.
We were warned about that by Jimmy Carter, President Jimmy Carter, and Secretary Baker.
You know what you were also warned about by Jimmy Carter? Donald Trump. By the way, this is, I don't know if you guys can see this. There's some serious cleavage going on for a news conference right now. This is not your grandmother's Kayleigh McEnany. Just saying. How did she get added to the team, Rudy? You know what I mean? All right.
In a report about a dozen years ago, in which they said that mail balloting is particularly susceptible.
Susceptible. Prone and susceptible are not the same thing. Objection, Your Honor. Sustained.
Fraud, that we should very carefully consider ever doing it, and that it can be taken advantage of.
Yeah, I know. Kayleigh McEnany's mailed in her ballot like 11 times, and she's completely untrustworthy. The woman said she'd never lie while wearing a cross, and then lies all the time.
Justice Souter.
How can we trust her to vote? We should give felons who have done their time the right to vote back and take Kayleigh's away. I'm kidding.
Warned us of the same thing in a comment in an election law case. And even the
What is the delay on this thing? 3, 2, 1.
New York Times wrote articles about how dangerous mail-in voting was. And
that's why they put safety measures and stopgaps in to verify things. And by the way, when Jimmy Carter was president, there were no cell phones And to have a computer in your home, you basically had to work for a telecom or the military.
First time we ever did it en masse, and I think we proved that all three are profits. It's not only susceptible to fraud, it is easily susceptible to fraud, particularly if you have a plan or scheme which sounds eerily similar to what Joe Biden told us a few days before the election, that he had the best voter fraud team in the world. Well, they were good. I don't know that they were that good because they made significant...
What? Joe Biden said he had the best voter fraud team. They have a legal team to push back against fraudulent attacks on voting. Good God.
Mistakes, like all crooks do, and we caught them.
Dun, dun, dun!
One of them was pushing out Republican inspectors.
No. Ask Samuel Alito. There were plenty of inspectors. There were too many.
Every state, almost every civilized country, even Tanzania and places you wouldn't think of.
I wouldn't think of Tanzania. Not in this context.
Have rules about inspectors, particularly for mail-in ballots.
It's funny, though, that you would pick a black country in your... Oh.
Why particularly for mail-in ballots? Because they can more easily be defrauded, and you can't check on it.
Well, we're gone to the prop comedy.
People who have never done a mail-in ballot, I'm going to show you why it's so easy.
Okay. Now, Carrot Top is a lovely human being, and he's a good guy. So I apologize ahead of time for any prop comic jokes I might make.
Well, you fill out an envelope like this.
No. You have an actual envelope that the state sends you that has a barcode associated with you on it and other markings. This is like pulling out a Post-it note and you're going, you have like a $50 bill like this one.
Usually in New York it would be your assembly district and the precinct in which you're voting. You fill out your name and your address and you sign it. You then use an inner envelope and you put the ballot inside the inner envelope.
Yeah, we know how this works.
You seal it all and you send it in. When it's being counted, almost invariably in the United States, up until the mass cheating that went on in this election, a Republican and a Democrat inspector, as well as others, if there are other parties, is allowed to watch the unsealing of this ballot.
Now, this is something Rudy might know a lot about because I've heard he likes to watch.
Used to go on all over America when we conducted honest elections. Because...
When was that exactly?
The only time you can ever find out if it's
boy, it's getting hot now.
A fraudulent ballot is when it is looked at. The minute you approve this, it's thrown away, gone for eternity.
There's a whole lot that happens in that the minute you approve this part. I mean that's kind of the entirety of the election verification process that happens with every single one. As a matter of fact, they dedicate a site just to that act.
The only thing left is the vote. That could have been Mickey Mouse. That could have been a dead person.
If indeed everyone along the stage of receiving these ballots and verifying them and apparently registering Mickey Mouse or a dead person to vote and mailing them a ballot that comes back with a matching signature on it. I've seen the Disney logo. Is that Mickey Mouse's actual signature?
That could have been not filled out properly. That could have been the same person.
It could have, and then what would have happened? They would have rejected it and put it in a set-aside pile, which they do. And then they cure it. And they go, hey, we got your envelope. And before we separate your ballot and your thing, before we can count that, we need to make sure the signature looks a little different. Is that your signature? Yes, it is. Do you mind coming down here and using your ID and maybe signing another thing? No problem. Great. Okay, see you around there. Oh, I'm sorry, what? You're invalid and you live at home? And yeah, and you're worried about COVID? Okay, well, we'll send a couple of volunteers out to you wearing masks, and they'll socially distance, and they'll give you a piece of paper to sign and take a little Polaroid of you, and then they'll come back. Okay.
Person 30 times. That could have been, and all these things have happened, by the way.
Yeah, it's a little tough, though, when you would have a bunch of people registered. You'd have 100,000 registrations in one particular county, and then you'd get 130,000 voters in the area. Would be the dumbest heist. That is like planning a bank heist and leaving your checkbook where the money was as a distraction.
That could have been nothing filled out. We'd never know.
Sure, yeah, it could have been. Never mind the fact that the people who are handling all this stuff take an oath, and they're punishable by jail time if they're seen doing this, and there's cameras in all these places. But sure, why not?
So, for example, the recount being done in Georgia will tell us nothing. Because
yeah, well, it will line up with the number of people who sent in their ballots. See, when they take the envelope and they separate it from the vote, they don't just throw the envelope away. They show that this voter's vote came in, just not what it was. So they count the ballot, but they also count the envelopes. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And that way, if you have more ballots than envelopes, or more envelopes than ballots, you go, where the hell did these 10 people go? We got 10 people who voted, and their votes didn't show up. Oh, they got their understands chair. It was wobbly.
Because these fraudulent ballots
That's a piece of paper.
will just be counted again.
No, they won't. Honest to God. I just want somebody to just bum rush the mic and go, they don't throw the envelopes out. They tally the envelopes and the ballots. If there's a mismatch, that shows up in an audit, which they automatically do if there's discrepancies.
Because they wouldn't supply the signatures to match
Somebody's like, there's a giant Rudy behind you.
the ballots. So it means nothing to have...
All right, okay. Let me move. I'm moving him away from me. It's concerning and kind of gross. I'm just going to give myself a little more space away from him because this is nasty.
Counted these ballots because, for example, in Pennsylvania, where we have probably our most precise evidence, 682,770 of these ballots were cast, put in, and they weren't inspected, which renders them ballots that are null and void.
No, they don't. No, they don't. They simply do not. You can't throw out the ballots of 680 some odd thousand voters without due process. They signed an affidavit saying this is my vote. They signed an envelope and sent it in. You know what kind of massive specific evidence you would need? He's doing this this could be as many as I don't know how many. These are the people who our people weren't watching. Yes, they were. Biden, Trump, Biden. That one counts. Keep that one's in the good pile.
Cannot be counted. Have to be removed from the vote.
No, they don't. This is your assertion. This is a bunch of shit.
Why?
Because you're an asshole.
For several reasons, not the least of which is that was basically only one of two places in the state where it was done. So in the other parts of the state, there was a legitimate inspection of the ballots. So
how do we know that there was a legitimate one? Your say-so, sweaty man?
If you have two different standards in different parts of the state,
you don't.
One favoring one part of the state, the other disfavoring the other part of the state.
By the way, he's confusing two of his arguments right here. If you guys watched the video that I did of his thing, the other argument they had in Pennsylvania court was that red counties were not curing ballots. If somebody's signature wasn't filled out properly, if it didn't look at all close, they would just throw it out. Because the assumption was in the red counties, most of the mail-in ballots are going to be for Biden, so you're better off just chucking as many as possible. But in the blue counties, they bothered to cure them. They called people up and said, is that your ballot? The people said, yeah. So in the process of having these ballots counted, their argument is there was a right denied. I don't know why this is very choppy. It's very choppy, it seems to me. The right that was denied to the red county voter was not indicative of malfeasance in the red county. It meant that the blue counties had to lower their standard to that of the red counties in the counting of mail-in ballots. It is the dumbest fucking argument you could possibly make. This is frigging goofy. Why is my keyframe interval all over? 5 frames per second. What's happening? Hold on. Give me 1 second. There seems to be a bit of an issue. Here's a tissue. There we go. I don't know why it's all of a sudden, all the way up. Sorry about this, guys. I don't know why the, yeah. No, it should be all right. It's just choppy. I don't know what's driving it like that. There we go. Now we're at 30. All right, we'll figure it out. Chopping broccoli, how. Trump 2020. You're a little late. I mean, honest to God, how do they get paid? All right, I'm going to turn this off. There we go. There we go. Hopefully this will smooth this out a little bit. All right, there we go.
The state, that's a classic violation of the Equal Protection Clause of the United States Constitution.
Yeah, but the violation comes from the red counties because they did not live up to the letter of the law. If Philadelphia decides they've had enough of sexual assault, and any man who pops a Tic Tac in his mouth and grabs a woman by the vagina without asking her permission or getting her consent is going to get a mandatory 6 years within the Philadelphia city limits. And the law against sexual assault is equal throughout the state of Pennsylvania, but the red states decide to throw it out and go, no, I don't think that's bad. I mean, Trump's my hero. So we actually aren't, we're not even going to charge people for that. They don't get to file in the Supreme Court to have the Philadelphia standard lowered so that you can have more sexual assaults within the state, within the city limits of Philadelphia. Literally, this came up in the legal case. The lawyer for the defense, which is the state, was saying, we're not going to have a race to the bottom for this crap. There's no excuse to lower everyone's standards to the standard of throwing out the most ballots possible based on nothing, based on the whim of a poll watcher, which would mean party dominance in those particular counties. By the way, and so he's screwing up the election, the people being able to watch versus the unequal application of curing ballots, which is the burden is on the red counties, not the blue counties, which he didn't sue in his suit. There you go.
Bush v. Gore being the most recent case that teaches that.
No, it doesn't. Bush v. Gore didn't have anything to do with that. Bush v. Gore was 500 some odd votes apart in a single state where they were in the process of doing a recount and arguing about hanging chads on ballots that, by the way, had already been separated from their envelopes. Had already been separated from all markings related to an individual voter.
That's not the only fraud that went on in Pennsylvania. All of the other frauds carried out in the other states by the Democrat bosses happened there as well. For example,
Okay.
if you've made a mistake
And you have. You definitely have.
in that ballot, and
Oh.
you lived in Philadelphia or in Pittsburgh,
Okay. Yep. This is getting into what I said. Yep.
you were allowed to fix the mistake.
Right. So, understand the premise that this asshole is talking about. Think about this for a second. You live in Philadelphia. You are a legitimate voter. You are a registered voter, a U.S. citizen over the age of 18 that has chosen to participate in the election. And in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, if there was something wrong with your ballot, they called you up and said, your signature looks different. Is this really you? And you, as a registered voter who wanted to vote in this election, answered to the affirmative. Because as an American, you have the affirmative right to vote. You see where you get it? All right.
But if you lived in what would be considered more Republican or Trump parts of the state?
Yep. Run by red counties, run by Republicans who received mail-in ballots and responded by chucking them out hand over fist.
You were given no such right.
Is that the fault of a Philadelphia voter?
One of our plaintiffs, Mr. Henry,
Is an asshole
cast a absentee ballot,
in a red county.
and he failed to put it in the secure envelope inside.
Right. Which you guys were arguing before the election should be a guaranteed toss out no matter what.
He just put it in open, naked.
We're still talking about voting, right?
That ballot was cast aside.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was invalid.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't invalid. He made a mistake.
Because that breaks the
His vote was valid. The process by which he brought his vote in to be counted was invalid.
privacy of the vote. In Pittsburgh and in Philadelphia, if they noticed that there wasn't an inner envelope, they'd contact the voter and allow him to vote again.
Okay. Did they count their vote twice? Did they count the ballot that was in there and say, we're going to count this one, but come on in and vote again? Did everybody who forgot their privacy envelope get to vote twice? No. They threw it out and you had to vote for real. Again, a legitimate voter voting for who they legitimately want to vote for.
Or if he didn't fill it out completely. Or if he made a mistake and didn't sign his full name.
Yeah, they cure ballots.
He was allowed to cure it.
Right.
There is no such provision under the law of Pennsylvania.
Yes, there is.
The Democrat Secretary of State made that up.
No, he didn't. He didn't invent the process.
In order to maximize the votes in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and to minimize the votes in the other parts of the state.
So wait. So the scheme was, look, we know a bunch of people are going to come out and vote for Biden. We got lots of them. The whole city's full of them. But to really put us over the top, we're going to wait until people screw up their mail-in voting, and that's when we pounce.
Clearly illegal, clearly voter fraud.
No, it isn't. Not clearly voter fraud. These people came in and voted for real, asshole. It's not fraud. Fraud would be a fake vote. You're not a real voter. It's not a real ballot. You didn't bring it in yourself. It's somebody else's. You voted for your dead grandmother who wanted to vote for Trump before she died 6 years ago, before she'd ever heard his name. That's fraud. Allowing registered voters to properly vote You can describe it as unfair to the red counties that are cheating people out if that's your screwed idea of what fairness is. But for fuck's sake.
Easily provable, hundreds of witnesses,
Garbage.
maybe thousands.
You're a moron. Not even close. Give me 1 second. I need to fix something because this is going to drive me crazy. See if I can do this. The doobity-doo. Because we're getting, I don't know, like the frames per second rate, and it might not even be my thing. Like sometimes it